Time for a reading. I'm sure you've all by now heard of the Bhagavad Gita. I just usually say Gita because it's easier. And it's one of the earliest and one of the most remarkable books ever written. And regardless of your religion, it has incredible amounts of spiritual truth in it, and you should run right out and get yourself a copy. I recommend the annotated copy by a fellow called Iswaran, Easwaran. It was inexpensive, it was on Amazon, and it's great. The Gita is a story of, it's part of a story of a humongous war that occurred in India. In the middle of this war, one of our main characters is looking at the opposing side with all their chariots and all their warriors, and they're all his cousins. And he says, how can I fight my family? How can I kill these people that I've played with when I was a child? I can't do this, no. And he's in a chariot, and his charioteer is the great god Krishna, who's just been undercover as a charioteer. And he says, but you must. Surprising answer from a god of peace and love. And he explains to him about the karma of the situation and the whole thing. But while he's going through it, he says the most beautiful things. And they don't dwell on the obstacles to spiritual success, which, of course, the great spiritual success would be moksha, freedom from illusion, and freedom from the cycle of death and rebirth. The Gita quickly goes on to reveal Krishna's more compassionate nature. It makes the point that whatever a person deeply desires, whatever he or she worships, will eventually be attained. In particular, to have real selfless love, regardless of the object, is to love Krishna, the ultimate good. This kind of love, called bhakti, is far more potent than observances and rituals, a point that the Gita slowly reveals. But to have this devotion is not enough. You must have the devotion and understand that it's the universal aspect of divinity that he loves. And then he will attain freedom. And Krishna says to him, whatever you do, make it an offering to me. The food you eat, the sacrifices you make, the help you give, even your suffering. In this way you will be freed from the bondage of karma and from its results, both pleasant and painful. And I've tried this with my pain. And every time I've said, here, you can have it, it lessened. I'm not going to say it went away every single time. That would be untrue. But it lessened. And Asha's meditations is for everybody, regardless of religion. If you want to go more deeply into Hinduism, we have a chat room set up and maybe some podcasts coming out. But, I'm not here to offend anyone. So I will say words like divinity and almighty instead of more specific terms. But the practices I teach, those of bhakti yoga, because yoga is not just about twisting your body into funny looking shapes. Yoga is any kind of spiritual work that you take on for your betterment. And it says in the Vedas that anything that you do for your benefit to make you a better, more spiritual, kinder, more humane human being is also for the betterment of the universe. So while it may seem selfish to take all this time and reflect and stare at your navel, it's really not, because you're adding, no matter how little, it doesn't matter, you're adding to the cumulative positivity of this universe with this yoga. And along with this yoga, I thought I'd give you a story. And this is based on a historical person. You can look her up in Wikipedia, the year she was born, the year she died. Her name was Mira. And as a very small child, she became obsessed with Krishna, the god Krishna. I'm just going to take a quick step back and remind you all once again that all of the gods of Hinduism, all of the gods of India, come from one great creator god. They are called devas, divine beings, not God Almighty. God Almighty we can't understand. A mind and intellect that could support thousands of galaxies with who knows how many billions of life forms on them. Can we even, not even close, we are nothing compared to that kind of mentality. So the devas step in, they are a step in the chain of command, as it were. And they come in so many different flavors because people come in so many different flavors. Perhaps a woman will want to worship a woman god. A woman warrior god, got those. An old woman god, got those. Mother goddess, got that. And then with men, the choices are just endless. And Krishna is depicted usually as blue-skinned, and don't ask me why, I don't know. That is to depict his divinity, I guess. And in one of his incarnations, he was like a cowherder. And all the girls fell in love with him. He played the flute so beautifully. But his favorite was a woman named Radha. She was much older than him. It was impossible for them to marry. So they became the bestest friends ever. And loved each other until their last breath and beyond. Krishna and Radha. So it is Krishna, when he's all grown up and away from the cowherding, that is now masquerading as a charioteer in the Bhagavad Gita and speaking to Arjuna, who is supposedly more noble than him, but in the course of their discourse, he does reveal his divine nature. And he talks a lot about the bhakti way. Because the Hindus, being the oldest religion and the oldest tradition on the planet, have a different way of looking at time, of course. They say that there are many ages. First, the golden age was when everybody lived for a real long time and lived the life practically of gods. And then things changed. And the warriors took over. So we had the age of wars. And then things changed. And corruption, negativity, that took over. And everything you see on the news is proof that it is indeed Kali Yuga, which is their way of saying the really bad times before the end. They say this world will be destroyed. How they mean that, I don't know. I do not think in a Holocaust sense. I think they mean it in wipe the slates clean, start over. And then we go back to the golden age, where I hope to see you. Now, back to the story of Mira. She was a little girl. She fell in love with the beautiful image of Krishna because he is very beautiful. And she said, I'm going to marry him someday, Mommy. And Mommy was like, yeah, right, kid. And her parents, of course, arranged a marriage for her, and she really didn't want to consummate it. And her husband is like, what's wrong? And she said, honestly, my heart belongs to Krishna. He is the only one that will ever have my heart or my body. Saddened, but respecting her enough. Her husband let her become a renunciate, which means that you don't have sex. I'm a renunciate. And you refrain from carnal pleasures to purify yourself spiritually. And it's not all that hard to do either. It gets easier. And he lives with it because, like I said, it gets easier. And every night he'd hear her in her temple room singing to Krishna, dancing for Krishna, talking to Krishna like a lover. And then one night, he went in, and there was the life-size statue of Krishna. And her sari. She was never found. They record that as the year of her death. We think that Krishna finally came for her and that they are living together happily. But it's a lovely story. And now we're going to talk about love. Love is an amazing, wonderful phenomenon. And it's also the glue of the universe. Love and loving kindness is what keeps this world going. Think of all the people that you love, even just a little. Think of all of them. The animals that you love. The people that you have loved that have gone ahead. Now the picture frame's getting crowded, isn't it? Add in all those people on Facebook that you say, love ya. Add them in too, because maybe you do love them just a little bit. Let's broaden out our perspective of love and bring it up from just the, romance thing that people have gotten into. When a man holds a door open for me because I'm limping, that's love. When my partner makes a special meal for me, that's love. When she buys me candles for my altar, even though she's Catholic, that's love. There's all kinds of ways to express love and to feel love. But how much of that do we let through? And does that depend on one very key factor? A lot of people say, I love him to death, whatever that means. But do you love you? Meditate on that. Look into your heart chakra and tell yourself the truth. Do you love you as you are? Not in a couple of years, not when I lose 20 pounds. Now, right this minute, do you love you? Only by removing the barriers that cause you not to love you. When you remove those barriers, like when I lose 20 pounds, I'll love myself. Do you think God would love you any more if you were 20 pounds lighter? I can tell you, it doesn't matter to him. He looks beyond all that. He loves you as you are exactly in this moment. And he's bursting to show that to you. All you have to do is let him. Remove the barriers. And now we'll do a moving meditation.